All right. Hello once again. Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. Yes, it has been about 10 days since I've been on, and that's because I lost everything on my machine. And I've went out and got some software to recover it, was able to recover part of it. All right. So I'm going to go back to my project here. All right. And I'm going to start and double check and make sure everything looks good. So here is the app.config file. And as you can see, this is an XML or an extensible markup language file. It tells the version of XML I'm using, the fact that I'm basically using UTF, which is something like Universal Transformation Format or something like that. It means I'm using Unicode. And in my configuration, I have to set up my connection strings. I have to add the name of the database, which as you can see in here is wrong. This shouldn't be payroll database. This should be the same as this. So it should be payroll database ASP03b. Then we have our data source, which means that for now we're running this locally on our machine. And our initial catalog is the same name as the name of our database. Plus we're using some built-in Windows security. That's everything. So that should now be okay. All right. I'm going through everything because, like I said, I had nothing but problems. In fact, with that said, let's just go back for a second. You can see how this has changed. And let's see. Hold on just one second. Yep, I found it. Okay, this is my project file. All right, I put comments in here explaining what everything is. We're using one of the later forms of Windows. All right. Yes, we are enabling it to provide us support. We're turning on warnings we might get for null reference types. I'm going to try to get rid of all those as we go on. Auto object, as it says, common using directives into every source file. Yeah, we've got our usings. All right. Yeah, no console window. Don't worry about that. Okay. The namespace is PayrollEFCore03b, and that's what the compiled executable will be. Finally, as it says, we want to suppress the entity framework design time warnings that fire. All right, our references, we're using Entity Framework Core. We're using Entity Framework Core SQL Server. We're using the design, the tools, I guess I thought I had it in here. Somehow it was removed. I think I had something in here that they used an input box from Visual Basic, and that's why that's in there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this file and I'm going to make sure that in my project itself, which is in EF Core, I believe right here, and right here, you can see I get a bunch of files like one with a 1 extended on it, etc. This has just been, like I said, no, please give me no, this is what was in there. I'll replace it with this. And I'm not asking for anybody to give me any sympathy. I'm just saying that this is one of the reasons I haven't been on in a while. Okay, just so you're aware of that. All right, let's go on. And in here, let's bring up let's get rid of this. Yeah, it says it ran into a problem. So it's a circular dependency. Oh, goody. You may need to reload the solution after fixing the problem. Okay, let's just do a file, save all here. Let's get rid of that error, and hopefully this will fix it when we get going in a little bit. Okay, so let's go into here, and under our data, let's start with DB context right here. All right, so this file, for lack of better words, is defining the EFCore database session that we're using. Okay, this inherits, as you can see, from DB context. All right, it's the entry point for all of our CRUD operations, our create, our read, our update, and our delete. So every time we do anything, it basically has to flow or go through this class. There's going to be 5 entity classes that are in here. This right here is our employee class. All right. That's our abstract class we're going to have. This is our hourly employee class, our piece worker employee class, our commission employee class, and our salaried employee class. All right. Now, that said, there's going to have to be some changes made in here. Let's look at the using. Yes, we need Entity Framework Core, and yes, we need the models folder. All right. So we've got this. All right. And let's just start at the beginning in here. All right. So in other words, there's a few things that have to be set up in here. But let's go and add. I don't know if I put those in here or not, so I'm going to come in here. There is one of our constructors. But let's have a parameterless constructor. So what we're going to have in here, get rid of that, is we're going to put in here I don't even know if we need this one, but I'll put it in here anyway. All right, I'm going to grab this. I'm going to copy it in. It'll give me an error. Don't worry about it that it's giving me an error. We're going to put nothing in here, and we're not going to have this either, just in case we need a parameterless constructor. All right, this is the one that we're going to care about in here. All right. Now we have to set up our DB sets. Each of these DB sets is going to represent a table. All right, it'll be the starting point for all of the different CRUD operations that we're going to want to go through and do. All right, null is going to hopefully suppress any warnings we get. EFCore should always initialize these properties before any code accesses them. So taking it from the top, we've got public DB set employee employees get set equal null. Great. Then we've got an hourly employee of type employees get set is null. Then we've got the commission, and then we've got the salaried. Nothing new in there. I didn't change anything. All of that looks good. All right, from there, we're going to go on to our on model creating. On model creating is called once by EFCore. All right, it's when it starts to construct everything. It's going to configure for us the table names, the inheritance strategy, in other words, that hourly employees, piece worker employees, commission employees, and salaried employees, that all of those are going to, those 4 classes are going to inherit from the employees class. All right, so we've got model builder to entity employee dot to table employees. All right, we've got piece worker employee to table piece worker employees. We've got hourly employee to hourly employees, commission employee to commission employees, and salaried employee to salaried employees. Good. Next, we're telling it here to ignore the gross pay. Okay, gross pay is going to be calculated in C#, not by the database. It's not going to be persisted or loaded from the database. Okay? All right. This ignore in here makes it explicit that the EFCore model will ignore it. Next, we set up our decimal precisions. These are the sizes that everything is going to be. All right. So you've got in here, they're of type decimal PS. All right. And P basically, so this says 5 digits maximum, 2 digits after the decimal point. So this will hold a maximum value of 999.99. All right, so that's hours worked. And you can see we've got one for hourly rate, etc. I'm not going to read through these. You can see all of them. All right. And then when we're all done, we say they're base.onModel creating model builder. You always call the base implementation at the end so that any base class configuration conventions will be applied after we've done any kind of overriding. This should now all be okay. So I'm going to do a save all on here as well. Now I'm at 11 minutes. Good. So that means I should be able to do the DB context file as well. This is the context factory. All right. When EFCore migration commands run, they don't execute inside of the normal application startup path. So they can't be in there in the application.run, etc. Okay. What we're doing by using this context factory is we're telling the entity framework, use this class to build a context instance if and when you need one. All right. Now we're going to put a connection string in here, and you can see this on lines 12 and 13. This lets the system know that for now, we're using our own machine. If we were putting this in a production environment, which is what I hope to do when we convert this over to an ASP.NET file, then we want to read it from an environment variable, or probably we'll use appsettings.json. Why? So that any connections are never committed to source control. All right, so people can't see these things. All right. So we've got a using statement, and here we need Entity Framework Core, and we need the design. We need Entity Framework Core, all right, because that's going to be using the Context Options Builder, and we need this design because this is going to use the iDesignTime DB Context Factory. All right, so what are we doing in here? All right. We want to create and return a fully configured instance. Again, this is going to be used by the EFCore tooling mechanism at design time and by the WinForms applications at runtime to build the context that we need. So we've got public class DB factory, and again, it is inheriting from this iDesignTime DB context factory with payroll DB context in it. All right. Now, this is what we're doing inside of here. Okay. What are we doing? Well, inside of this right here, public payroll DB context, create DB context. All right. This is going to build and return this context. It'll be configured to connect to our database, our local database. Okay. And we have in here name or string bracket args. That's a command line argument. Usually it's going to be empty, but it's something that's required. So what are we doing in here? We're first saying var options builder equal new DB context options builder, etc. This creates an options builder. We're going to use this to be able to grab or accumulate all of our EFCore settings that we're going to need. All right. Next, what we're doing in here is we're registering the SQL server provider, and we're providing the connection string information. We're letting it know that this is local on our machine. We're letting it know the name of the database. All right. We're letting it know with this trusted connection is true, it's going to use the Windows authorization. In other words, we don't need an extra password. If you're logged in on this machine as a Windows user, you can use it. This, at the end here, says that we can skip any SSL certification validation. All right. Some of the stuff we won't use if we put this actually in a out on the internet or on a production type of machine. All right. Okay. So afterwards, we return this new context rather. This will construct the context with the options that we have shown above, and it'll return them. Okay, hopefully that all made some sense. So far what I've done in this particular video is I've gone in and verified that the app config was correct, that our csproj file was correct, that our db context file was correct, and that our db context factory file was correct. Now that puts me at 17 minutes. What I want to do, because I'm going to stop in just a minute, is I want to go into the models folder next, and I want to go through these 5 models. If there's time in the next iteration of this, I will also go through the employee service file. When I get done with those 2, I'm going to go over the form and what, if anything, is going to have to change in the form. So I'm trying to be deliberate here and go over everything I believe, at least, we're going to need in order to get this thing up and running. And if and or when we do, I should say, if and when we can convert it over to an ASP.NET application. All right. Hopefully that all made some sense to you. I'll be back with the next iteration of this. If I have time, I'll get back today. Otherwise, I do plan on spending some time on this tomorrow. I'll talk to you then. Thanks.